Right, time for another update. I'm now on the mirrors. So the idea is to try and get these folding. These look like they've been moulded off an original Ferrari f430 mirror because there are witness lines from the moulding of where it used to swivel, if it does. I don't know. One of the things that people say it's not, which I think it is because it's got the f430 on both the mirrors, and the actual f430 that only has it on driver's side or left side or whatever it is. Right, so anyway, the idea is to cut this, but first of all what I had to do was make a jig that would get this mirror sitting totally square, so I could use a drill piece to go all the way through, and it would give me a centre swivel point which was accurate. So lucky enough for me, because these castings were so accurate, the actual mirror itself sits perfectly level, which meant that I was able to get it to sit in this jig perfectly. Now it's just obviously welded pieces of scrap, but the mirror sits in there perfectly. This enabled me then to drill a 6mm hole all the way through. Only then did I actually separate it along the witness lines, which then gave me this. Once I'd done that, actually first, now it's important that the swivel point is not too close or too far away, because when it turns it will catch, and you need to set the circumference of the swivel, because the actual circumference needs to be bigger than the swivel so things don't lock up, which I'll show you in a second. So anyway, separated them. It was only roughly cut. Once I then I was able to make sure that first of all it would actually do a swivel, such as that. Then I previously measured the circumference or the radius and fabricated a thick disc which would sit in my 6mm pin, which I also machined up, so it would fit perfectly. Now I was able to also fit a sanding disc on it. That's just glued and then cut to shape or cut to size. So as a for instance, this was just all roughly cut, and then I would use this sanding disc or this disc to actually, in a drill, it would give me a perfect radius, and also then a guide for this one. So it just makes everything as neat as possible. Now this is fitted, so it means that there's no gap in between. I've got to sand a gap into it so that the paint doesn't scrape, or because obviously once this has had a few coats of primer and then paint, it's going to be too big. So I need to sand this back a bit, but I'll do that when I'm starting to polish stuff up. So that was done for both the top and the bottom. So they're all done. This is just the first sort of finish. There's some little bits I need to tidy up. And it actually gives me my swivelling 430 mirror. And I don't know if you see, hopefully that's coming through on the camera. And just there, and get my fingers out of the way, just like that. So then the next thing is, how am I going to make it so that the mirrors are ratchet, so they'll stay at like 0, 45, 90, so you can fold them in and they stay folded in. Well, Enzo Design many years ago actually fabricated pre-pregnated mirrors, which they put a little very simple ratchet system in, and basically all it is 2 discs, thin 3mm plate, and they have holes drilled through them. The bottom one, say the bottom one would have 8 equally spaced 4mm holes, and the top 3mm. you'd put a 5mm bearing in now, and then clamp it together with a sprung, with a 6mm bolt, nut and bolt, with a sprung washers, couple of sprung washers. So that enables the disc to jump around and jump over the bearing, but the bearing always stays in place on the bottom disc. I'll be doing that next week. So that gives you your movement. On the Enzo ones, they actually, the pre-made parts would screw into the actual, the bigger stem of the mirror. So this is the bottom one. So you'd have the bottom disc on that one, and then the top disc on this one, and it would literally ratchet round. So that's my next week's. I've got the bearings, I've got the plate, I've just got to make it all up. So that's my next step, and that will give me my well, basically ratchet mirrors. So what I've got to look out for is if I can cover this area which is open. So that might need a little bit of filler or something there, I don't know. I've got to have a look on the f430. Right, so another little helpful bit for me is the fact that on YouTube it seems to be a bit of a common problem with the f430 mirrors coming loose, and people strip them down, and you can see how their mirrors are actually done, which is slightly different. It also shows you that they run the wiring through the top stem, and this has got underneath there is like a collar, or I haven't got one, but basically a metal receiver which a pin from this one comes through. So if you imagine you've got the in there. So you've got that pin goes into like a little a collar and sits in, and it's actually tapered at the top. I won't be doing that. I'll actually just have this as a standard pin, and mine will be a collar which will be, everything's going to be bonded and screwed in. So it will just literally sit like that, and it will just be hidden. This will be covered up the top, because it only needs to stop the vibration, because the majority of the work is done from the bottom. But this is, well, when it's tighter, it's actually a pretty good fit. And that's where we are at the moment. Thanks for watching.